I have no idea why, but you sickos continue to trade rookie picks. We're going to go through and look at a ton of trades that y'all left in the comment section of this week's videos and break them down. What is the updated price for these picks? Why are y'all doing it? And maybe why you should stop. But first trade we're going to look at is coming out from Kerry. Says, would you trade the 107 to the guy who just finished last place for his first next year? I finished second, but have someone else's first this year. Decent chance that he finishes bottom 6. So if you go over to flockfantasy.com, put this in right now, you're going to see in the community rankings that at the time of this recording, you have a 2025 early to mid first ranked at about 47. You have the 107 ranked at about 48. So they are neck and neck. Typically, if you're looking at an early to mid first, obviously that projects out to be a top 6 pick, but so often we are completely wrong with those projections. And when I say we, I mean myself. I say everybody in the YouTube comment section, where we want to sit here and we want to act like we know exactly how next season's going to play. The reality of the situation is, if you're trading for someone's 2025 first, one, their team could be a lot better than you expect. What happens if they find the next Puka? What happens if they find the next Kyron Williams? And you just traded the 107 for what you thought was going to be like next year's pick 3, pick 4, and then it turns out to be pick 11. That's one possibility. Another possibility is this person trades you their early to mid first, what on paper is an early to mid first, for pick 7, and then immediately decides, I no longer have my first round pick. It's time to go all in. It's time to sell my younger assets and get guys that are going to produce this season. So when it comes to February, I'm always very hesitant to say, yes, this is an early. Yes, this is a mid, or yes, this is a late first round pick. I do think that there's a lot of variance here. So what I would prefer to do is I would prefer to wait until we are closer to the actual rookie draft. One, that way we have a much better sense of who's going to be on the board at pick 7, if we like that player, and if they're going to be able to contribute to our team. And also, we are going to get a sense of what is that other owner doing over the next 3 months, and what direction is he taking his own roster. So typically, I would say a trade like this, I am probably going to hold on to pick 7 until we get closer to the draft. And then if you still want to make that move, especially if you don't like the player that would be there for you at 7, then sure, go ahead and do it. Just not necessarily a trade that I want to be making in early February. Now, I will say, if you look at this in the flockfantasy.com trade calculator, currently has it labeled as a fair trade. Really, it is up to you. You do have a slight edge going to the 2025 early to mid first. But like I said, it is going to be up to you. Now, our next trade coming out from Michael says, 1 quarterback, start 9. I traded Rachaad White and Aaron Jones for the 105. Then the 105 and James Cook for the 102. We already have the 101. Now, I want to strongly point out that this is a 1 quarterback format. Obviously, Superflex League, 105. You're looking at like Malik Neighbors, and you are pumped. You're super happy to be there. However, in a 1 quarterback format, no, you're not looking at Malik Neighbors at the 105. Instead, you're going to have Neighbors, Harrison, Rome, Bowers already off the board. You're going to be looking at like Brian Thomas Jr. there at pick 5. So it makes sense to take it that one step further to move up to pick 2, where now you're essentially accumulating all these trades. You're trading away Rachaad White, James Cook, Aaron Jones for the player that we strongly presume in a 1 quarterback format to be Malik Neighbors, particularly in a start 9 league where it's going to be a little bit of a shallower format. I would prefer to go out there and get the best player. I would prefer to go out there and get the stud. And yeah, if you put these league settings into the trade calculator on flockfantasy.com, my favorite thing about our trade calculator is that it actually takes into account your exact league settings, so it can give you updated values. There, you will see the 102 is going to be the better side of this greater overall deal. So I like the trade. Now, Corey coming out says, would you trade the 103 and the 105 for Christian McCaffrey, pick 7, and the 309? This is a 12-team Superflex PPR with a 0.25 point per carry as well. We have a core of Stroud, Richardson, Deshaun, Brees, Puka, Garrett, London, and Laporta. So a couple different things I want to say. First thing being is, with this being a 0.25 point per carry format, obviously there's going to be a premium placed on the running backs. you would be more excited to trade for Christian McCaffrey, and you would be less excited about these rookie picks, particularly because you're not taking a running back here. It doesn't matter if it's 0.25 point per carry. Jonathan Brooks is not going to be in play. However, what you can do is you can take the rushing quarterbacks. 0.25 point per carry. Hell, 103. Give me Jaden Daniels. I think that's an easy pick. I think we will take the additional 10 carries he's going to be averaging at the NFL level, and we would run with that. Going back to what we were talking about previously, if you are breaking down the tiers, you do have a tier of 5 with the top 2 receivers, the top 3 quarterbacks. Then you have a tier of 7 where you add in Rome and Bowers into that mix. And that's how it stands now. Obviously, this can change as we get closer to the NFL draft. So with this deal, we are essentially trading, say, Jaden Daniels with the 103 and Malik Neighbors with the 105 to get back Christian McCaffrey and Rome, right? Or Christian McCaffrey and Bowers. The third round pick, the 309, has literally no impact on this. I'm sorry. I know you've heard me make this analogy a million times, but I think it's the perfect one. If you're making these massive moves, right? We're trading the 103, the 105 for CMC, the 107, and then you throw in like a late third. It's like you're trading a Ferrari for a Lamborghini. Y'all are going back and forth. You can't decide. And then the guy goes, hey, I'll throw in the little tree on the dashboard that smells good. It literally is meaningless. Could not matter less. So I don't even want to talk about that. I would prefer the rookie picks. I do think that Christian McCaffrey is the best redraft asset that you currently have, especially in a 0.25 point per carry league. I mean, right now, if you go over to Underdog Best Ball Drafts, Underdog just dropped the big board. It's like a $2 million prize pool, $10 buy-in best ball tournament. And there, Christian McCaffrey is going off the board at 1 overall, obviously, with that being for 2024. And if you want to get into a draft on Underdog Fantasy, I mean, I'm going to be drafting there all offseason, already streaming drafts on our main channel there as well. Now's the best time because they just dropped that big board tournament. They just dropped the little board as well. Best ball, so no time commitment at all during the year. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match, our Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, you will be getting a Patrick Mahomes special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for the big game. And Underdog's giving away $1 million to people who participate in pick'em for the big game as well. So all you got to do is submit a pick'em to get entered. So definitely make sure you are taking advantage of that. Links in the description and the comment section. Now, Rocco going over says, do we trade the 104 and my 2025 first next year for Jamar Chase? I have the best team in the league, and I have 2 first-round picks every year for the next 3 years. Now, here, plug this into flockfantasy.com. It is going to say that we want the best asset. We want Jamar Chase. And this is where I'm willing to say, okay, if you are confident that you have the best team in the league, that we have also 6 future first, then yeah, let's go ahead. Let's trade for that elite level asset, right? If you're already just a complete juggernaut, then it does make a lot of sense for you to go and get one of the very few players that's actually going to move the needle, that's also extremely young at the same time. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense to go out there and get Jamar in that instance. Now, our next trade coming out from Heatstar says, I traded Garrett Wilson in the 103 for Jahmyr Gibbs, Nico Collins in a 1 quarterback format. We already have the 101 and 102. Is this a W? So I do want to reiterate, it's a 1 quarterback format. So here at the 103, you're either going to be looking at Rome or Bowers. Moving off of Garrett Wilson to Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't necessarily know what side I would want. You look at the community rankings on flogfantasy.com. Right now, they are back-to-back in 1 quarterback. They're at 7. They're at 8. I think it is up to you. What's crazy is if you go and look at the trade finder on flogfantasy.com as well and look at Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs, there are a bunch of deals here, but the most recent trade from a day ago is actually Garrett Wilson for Jahmyr Gibbs straight up. So it's really funny, but I think you can make an argument for either guy depending on what your team needs. So really, we are going to be looking at the 103 versus Nico Collins. Would you rather have Rome? Would you rather have Nico? What is crazy is going back to those Underdog Best Ball drafts currently, something I disagree with, but it's happening nonetheless, is people are drafting Nico Collins at the beginning of the 2nd round in 2024 drafts. Obviously, Nico, a younger player as well. So, I mean, people are very excited. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we have a lot of people coming out saying, Mason, you're crazy. I would rather have Nico over Rome. But no, I would rather have the 103 over Nico Collins at this point relatively easily. The trade calculator agrees as well. It does have Garrett Wilson in the 103 as the selection. Now, our next trade coming out from Dragon Breath says 12-team Superflex PPR, no tight end premium, start 11. So a little bit of a deeper league here. We have Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, as well as the 103, 104, 105. Would you trade Herbert and Quentin Johnston for the 102 and 108? So I would say first thing is I am not panicking if we have Mahomes, Allen, and Justin Herbert. If we have those three quarterbacks, I'm completely fine rostering three elite level quarterbacks and telling our league, suck it, deal with it. I'm going to have the best quarterback room in this league for the next decade. You're in a position of power. I don't think you have to be moving off of one of those quarterbacks at all. Now, with that being said, it is going to put you in a little bit of a tough spot operating under the assumption that you do have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams as the first two picks in this league. Because if you're also sitting here at 3, 4, 5, obviously we can take Neighbors with one of these picks, but the other two selections right now look like it's Drake May and Jaden Daniels. And I don't necessarily think that's going to change. I understand maybe we are sitting here and maybe we have the elite level quarterback, so we don't want to go out there and take Drake May and Jaden Daniels and then all of a sudden have Drake May as our QB5, especially in a start 11 league. So I understand where you're coming from. I do think that you have a lot of time to figure this quote unquote issue out, which is not that big of an issue. Obviously, this is a good example, however, of looking at a very specific situation and saying, I understand based off your situation, if you want to make a trade where you voluntarily lose in value. Because if you plug this into the calculator, you do have Justin Herbert, Quentin Johnston as the better side over the 102 and the 108. But if you think of the 102, you're going to end up getting Marvin Harrison Jr., then you can follow that up with Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and all of a sudden you're going to get two very solid wide receivers and then still be completely fine at quarterback. With your specific situation, I would understand you wanted to go out there and make this move. Just like I said, it's very dependent and it's very weird to look at here. Now, going over to our next trade, this is going to be out from 77 Monkman. Says we would trade Nico and Saquon to get Tyreek and Tajee Spears and a 10-team Superflex start 9. So we're going to plug in 10-team Superflex start 9 on the trade calculator. You will see that Tyreek Hill's ranked slightly ahead of Nico Collins. Nico Collins in the Superflex community rankings currently at wide receiver 13, Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 11. And what really surprised me and what I do not agree with at all is you have Tajee Spears right now ahead of Saquon Barkley in the community rankings. These are the community rankings that are completely free on flogfantasy.com. Like if you pull up my rankings on flogfantasy.com or the overall cumulative expert rankings, which is just pretty much all your favorite people that you watch on YouTube, you'll see that that's not how we have it ranked. We have Saquon over Spears, but nonetheless, I mean, I do think you have a strong argument for Tyreek and the Spears side, especially if Spears is already being valued here at this kind of price point, and I would immediately go out there and try to sell him high, to be completely honest with you. And of course, if you want to check out my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, the Dynasty rankings of all your favorite creators, our Dynasty Trade Calculator, our Dynasty Trade Finder. Our calculator actually allows you to put in your league settings, and we have an algorithm to adjust based off your exact league settings to give you the most accurate trade calculator you can find. You find all that on flogfantasy.com. Code FLOG, you get 30% off any subscription. Plus, promo code FLOG will get yours truly to break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team in a podcast. But our next trade coming out from Aiden says, would you trade Chase in for the 101 and T Higgins and a 10-team Superflex where we also have the 103? So if you look at Chase versus the 101 right now in these rankings, Chase is at 10, the 101 is at 11. So yeah, I mean, they are pretty close. I'm almost in the same exact range here. I would rather have Jamar Chase, but once you add in T Higgins, I do think that it makes a lot of sense to just go ahead, take the 101, take Higgins. My only hesitation would be, of course, that this is a 10-team format, so maybe the depth does matter just a little bit less. Now, our next deal coming out from Rental Turtle says, would you rather have Kyler in the 103 or Stroud in the 202? This is a Superflex, full PBR, tight end premium, start 10. So I would really like to know how many teams are in this league. Obviously, I like to know that it's a start 10 league, but if it's a 12-team league, 14-team, 16-team league, obviously it can get very deep here. Whereas if it's like a 10-team start 10 league, then it's going to be a little bit more shallow where you would prefer the stud versus the depth. So that's a big thing that our calculator does, just fill you in. If you don't know this simple dynasty strategy, the deeper your league is, say if this was a 16-team start 10 league, there you probably prefer Kyler Murray in the 103 because it's going to be very difficult to find that additional starter. However, if this is like a 10-team start 10 league, then it's like, okay, well, ultimately, give me the best asset. Ultimately, give me the stud in CJ Stroud. The trade calculator, just plugging this in as if it's a 10, 12-team league, it does have it as a slight favorite for the CJ Stroud side. I wouldn't fault you at all. However, if you wanted to make an argument for Kyler here, because obviously that 103 is going to be a great pick. I mean, if you really needed an additional quarterback starter, and it is that deeper format that we're not expecting right now, then maybe you want to go ahead, you want to take Kyler and then take Jaden Daniels at the 103. Now, our next trade is going to come out from DeBoy Drainage says, I have the 103 and 109. Would it be fair to trade for the 104 and the 105, trying to land Neighbors and Odunze or Daniels? Say first thing is, if it's super flex, please be taking Daniels over Rome. And yes, I would trade the 103 and the 109 for the 104 and 105 in a heartbeat. I think that 103, 104 should probably be a similar style prospect. However, 109 and 105, I do think it's going to be in a completely different tier at this point. So yeah, I would go ahead and I would make that trade and give me both picks inside the top 5. But I think that's all I have for y'all with this video. If you enjoyed it, please go down there, hit that like button, subscribe, play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And like I said, if you want to get into an underdog draft, if you want to check out those pick'ems, now is by far and away the best time to do so. Use code FLOCK. You're going to get a 100% deposit match, plus our Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, plus a Patrick Mahomes special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for the big game. And if you include an underdog pick'em for the big game, you're going to get entered in a win, an airdrop from them. They are airdropping $1 million for the Super Bowl. Please make sure you're taking advantage. Now's the best time to. But I think that's all I have for you. Really do appreciate you, and really hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.